Let's transition into the New York Mets, and Matt, we do have again another board here with just win total, and these are the players. If Quan, if you could just check, thank you. The 94.5, which we just do in the NL East there at plus 140, the NL pennant at plus 420, and to win the World Series at 8-1. The odds have changed. Just 3 weeks ago, they were 10-1 to win the World Series. So I think some money coming in on the Mets, and you see Justin Verlander. There's the pitcher, and as somebody who's been following this team for quite some time, and Jacob deGrom, it's going to feel pretty weird to see Jacob deGrom in another jersey this year, isn't it, Matt?
Definitely will. He's become my favorite player. He's just when on the field, he's elite, the best pitcher. I mean, I guess it's his kind of run is like a little bit like a modern day Sandy Koufax, where didn't have all the years, but the dominance was there.
Do you have any shares yet of Jacob deGrom? How do you feel about him in a high stakes league? I think, a draft and hold may be a little bit riskier. But do you have any shares yet? Or you're willing to roll the dice on him? Because man, I've noticed in, the great fantasy baseball invitational, man, some people are a little shy and it could create some value. I mean, we all know the pitcher that he is. If he were to give, I don't know, even just 160 innings, like this guy will return value. Don't you think?
Yes. I mean, 160 innings, I think you hit a home run. My philosophy as of now has been in the 150 DCs. I'm willing to take him, really, with no issue there. But as we creep up to the 400s or the higher stake ones, I'm a bit more hesitant, especially in that format where, there's no fab and, you're just rolling with the guys you have. I mean, I think if he gets you to 140, it's a win because he's that good. You're probably going to get 200 strikeouts in the elite ratios. It's definitely a risk tolerance thing. But definitely not an easy pick. And I think
not an easy pick at all.
It was a big Twitter debate like a day or two ago that I saw.
I must have missed that. Was that about Julio Urias? Did it have a little Urias in there as well?
I think it started with the Urias, and then I think Derek Carty said, hot take, DeGrom should be going in the first round, which to me, he is the 1-1. But if you're putting up, $1,700 or $2,500 for a draft, you're not going to be as apt to take DeGrom. I'm sorry. Money does change the equation. If I was playing in, TG. I'm sorry, I'm screwing up the name, but
no, you're good. I do it all the time as well. The Great Fantasy Baseball Invitation. I'm always like, I forget to throw the F in there, but I do like the TG FBI. But yeah, that's a different format. It's free, right? It's fun. You could take some risks. You take some gambles. You're shooting for ceiling. I'm right there with you. Like if I'm spending that kind of dough on, a high stakes league, I don't think I'm doing it, man. Like I like them. Fine, but there's a lot of risk, and
just for the flip side, like Carlos Rodon. I mean, I really loved him this year. He was my number 3 starting pitcher. But thankfully, the couple of big ones that did occur already, I missed out on him by like 2 picks. I probably would have taken him in at least one of them. And now that the big drafts are coming up, I've been spared.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's get into the players that are actually on the Mets. Colin, if you can bring up that board again. So we've shown here for the viewers that are a little bit unfamiliar, maybe you're just checking in because Modica is joining us here, and we do appreciate Kansas City Moose is in the house. Maddie, what is up? Welcome in. So we have like Pete Alonso, first baseman, the 3 next to him. So on average, over the last 6 weeks, NFBC high stakes leagues, a lot of drafts have taken place, a lot of big bucks, as you mentioned. On the line here as well. So on average, he is pick 18. In brackets, you'll see the ADP. And then the 3rd first baseman off the board, Francisco Lindor, the 5th shortstop off the board, pick 32. I actually did grab him in the TG FBI. Edwin Diaz, the first closer off the board, pick 35. Justin Verlander now in the house. Max Scherzer, 2 guys older, but still have a lot to offer in real life and in fantasy. I think you have to decide which one you like. Maybe you double tap depending on where you are in the draft. Verlander pitcher 10 on average, pick 42. Scherzer pitcher 13, pick 48. Starling Marte, man, I really notice in that format, outfielders really dry up. You got a roster of 5 of them, right, in your starting lineup. Outfielder 22, a top 100 pick. Nemo's in there. Jeff McNeil, he's got second and outfield eligibility on average, the 40th outfielder off the board, 13th second baseman off the board. And then Kodai Senga, we can get into him in a little bit, maybe the expectations. It's tough to really translate, the game overseas and how he's going to, react to here North American ball. But I really want to talk to you about Verlander and Scherzer. Do you have a preference between either or?
I've kind of been going back and forth on both. Maybe now I'm leaning a little more Verlander. I mean, Verlander, every time he's pitched, has just been really, really good. I mean, the same for Scherzer. Scherzer, the last couple of seasons, has had these injuries. And I think for both, you have to set your expectations at like 160, 175 as a cap. I think that's the realistic way to do it. I'd be happy with either, but I think right now maybe I'm slightly leaning Verlander.
I think Verlander seems to be a little bit safer, as you mentioned. Every time he touches the hill, I mean, with the Astros, he wasn't giving up anything. It wasn't the same sort of strikeout guy. I think it's probably fair to say you maybe get more punch outs with Max Scherzer. But, he does, both guys kind of, give up the long ball here and there, but it's a good pitcher's ballpark. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these guys. And it's such a solid rotation when you get into the postseason to have to face maybe these guys, 4 times potentially, like in a best of 7. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. How about Edwin Diaz? You talked off the strategy about, high stakes leagues and not punting saves. Are you willing to spend a top 35 pick on Edwin Diaz in high stakes leagues? And what is your overall strategy when it comes to saves and closers?
Real quick on Verlander, just for the people, in the second half of the season last year, he had a 31% strikeout percentage. Ooh. So I know the swinging strike didn't match up with that, but I think he's getting knocked a little for not being able to strike guys out. So and he'll be another year removed from Tommy John. As far as Diaz goes, I think, him or Clase are the two guys I would be willing to do it. I've done the Diaz and the Clase on separate occasions. And for them, I get it because you solve that, especially in a draft champions where you really, you can go specking after that. You don't really need to get that second closure. I mean, you can, but you'll feel a lot more comfortable specking on other guys. But after Diaz and Clase, it's like Hader, I think will be fine, but I haven't taken him. I really like Raciel Iglesias out of the remaining group, but a lot of them, everybody has I can make a case against all of them after them.
Yeah, Iglesias, I do believe, is on average the 7th closer off the board. He's a really good arm, and when the Braves acquired him, he wasn't the closer, right? But now he is, of course, the closer there in Atlanta. What about the bats? What do you make of the bats? I mean, there really doesn't seem to be any holes here with Alonso, Lindor, Marte give you a bit of speed. We talk about the outfielder position drying up pretty quickly. A little bit older, but still, a guy that can get on base and make things happen for you. Nimmo there as well, and McNeil. What do you make of some of these bats? Do you have a favorite? Is there a fade at all on this board? What do you think?
My favorite is Alonso, and maybe in the past that early it wasn't a profile I was looking at. But I think the two things that are most scarce in fantasy baseball is elite pitching always. I know people are saying it's pushed back, but once you get involved and as the stakes go up, the pitching gets pushed up. And elite production, a guy that can, do 40, 100, and give you a good batting average. So I'm definitely in on Pete. You do have to, solve that speed problem, but I think him and like an Austin Riley type, just to make a reference.
Yeah.
Those guys, I would be fine having one of those two in the first 2 rounds. The rest of the guys, I really don't have. And as far as Lindor goes, I kind of am more of a Jazz Chisholm guy than a Lindor guy this year. I think Jazz is that 3rd round player who could be the first, who could return 1st round value. I tweeted the other day, if you like Bobby Witt, if Bobby Witt was in the 3rd round, you'd smash that pick every time. That's Jazz, that's Jazz Chisholm. They're basically the same profile. The health concerns, obviously. The rest of the Mets, Marte's coming off double groin surgery or something.
Ugh.
I mean, I like Nimmo. He's solid and steady. McNeil, I'm kind of fading because I think he's a really good real-life baseball player, and he will give you the average, but it's not enough what I'm looking for at that point. And Senga is just a lottery ticket to me. I have no idea. If I told you something, I'm basically just, making shit up. So,
and I love it. I love the honesty, right? I don't think anybody knows. Nobody knows how his game is going to come over and translate. They just don't know. I'm looking at some projections over at Fangraphs. Steamer's pretty aggressive with the K per 9. He's got him at 10.23 K per 9. Most other projections have him around 9. The bat, as you mentioned earlier, 8.55 for the K per 9, and an ERA of 4.61. Everybody's got to kind of living in the 3.5. I don't know if he's going to be a big strikeout guy, but even some of the projections have him nearly at 4 walks per 9. I thought he'd be maybe a little bit more command than that. We'll see.
I did too. I'll give your audience a little sleeper pick here. David Peterson. It looks like he's going to get that chance as long as the foot's okay. I did a tweet the other day comparing two guys going 260 picks apart. It was Nick Lodolo and David Peterson. Obviously, I'd rather have Lodolo, but for the price, you're getting a guy with similar attributes. I mean, Peterson's slider is just pure filth. So, that's what you got to look. You got to find traits later on for things. So that's my Met sleeper for.
Love it. I was going to ask you for a Met sleeper, and I do love Lodolo, man. That guy, he's got it going on, good. Man. Yeah, very good. I think on average, like pitcher 40 or so. Hunter Green going a little bit earlier than him, but I definitely like Nick Lodolo. And I love the Jazz call. I had a lot of shares of Jazz, and unfortunately with the injury, but they got the power speed. Going to play a little outfield this year for Miami as well. The cover boy of MLB The Show. Yeah, he's a phenomenal player, fun player as well to watch. So I like that little tidbit of you giving us that, and the fact that, Francisco Lindor, great, but a little bit later on than that, Jazz as well as Bobby Witt. People are really aggressive taking Bobby. I was kind of surprised. I get it. The power speed, young player, hasn't even come close to tapping his potential yet, but I was still surprised to see him go as early as, he is going. I don't know. Do you have any shares? Is it too early?
I just took my first share of Bobby Witt. I get the case. Third base, you're going to get 30 stolen bases, maybe more, and he should hit at least 20 homers. So in fantasy, is he the best MLB player? That's not the case. That doesn't really matter here. Is he going to provide you with those stats? I don't see, if he's healthy, how he doesn't hit at least around 20 homers and steal a minimum of 30 bases. So I understand it, but I really haven't been taking him.
Over under Mets 94.5 wins.
I'm going to go under. I think for the division, all three teams could finish in the low 90s. And, last year, I know the Mets and the Braves had 101. The bad news is they don't get to play the Marlins and Nationals 19 times each, but they don't have to play each other as much. So it's, kind of a give and take there. But I think all three teams have a possibility of finishing the low 90s.
Yeah, like I said, it's very top heavy with those three teams. I would agree with you. It's tough to take an over at 94.5, right? Even though, as you mentioned, they hit the century mark, it's tough to take any baseball team, those mid 90s, like the Astros and the Yankees and Braves here included. And the Phillies, I think, 88.5, I kind of lean to the over on that one, is these three teams being like in the low 90s, to your point. And it is too bad. It's nice that you don't have to play them, 19 times, but to get those softball matchups against the Nationals and Miami, even though I do like some of the Miami arms that they have, some sneaky arms inside that rotation, but still not anywhere close to being competitive with those other squads.